What's going on, gang? Happy Monday. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Wonder if Green's off today. Wonder if they get that day off in Canada. Just to, be part of the team. Canadians are basically Americans, let's be honest. Let's be honest. We both have our problems. We both have our issues in how we've done things in the past, how we do things currently. You could say that we both made some mistakes. I think Canada has a pretty big ongoing issue, a historical problem during the civil rights movement in America with the indigenous tribes that have lived there. Green, would you like to explain for the class? Just kidding. But no. Today, obviously, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for civil rights. But man, I tell you, some nonsense over the weekend. Some things that have just gotten me thinking lately. I'm not this kind of guy. Usually, unless you get a few beers in me, then all bets are off. I don't usually like talking about politics and current events. One, because I know I'm not educated enough to talk about these things usually. I see headlines, Reddit posts, shorts, tweets, X's, whatever you want to call them. And I feel like I get my news from a diverse group of sources. But let's be honest. We all live in our own echo chambers. But I do want to just real quick talk about two things that have frustrated me a little bit this morning specifically, but it's been on my mind lately. Number one, a protester that was protesting against ICE for the death of Renee Good over in Minnesota was shot by a non-lethal round this weekend, sustained an eye injury, probably going to be blind in their eye for the rest of their life. They talked to a reporter and they said, yeah, this is, unbelievable. The doctors are telling me I'll never see again. Now, obviously he means out of that eye. I'm sure his other eye's fine, but that's besides the point. The point is, I just don't know what people expect. I have, as I've stated, I've worked for the Army, so I've worked in part in the DoD. I've worked in the intelligence community. I've worked as a government contractor. I've done some work with the Air Force. Any federal defense organization in our country, I hate to break it to you guys, but they have the power, and if this guy tries to sue, or even if Rachel Good's family tries to sue, maybe they'll get something out of it, and as they should, right? Our government shouldn't be killing people, no matter the circumstance when it started off as a protest. And I'm not here to say that the protesters were the ones that were completely innocent either. Violence begets violence in a lot of these situations. Not saying who threw the first stone. That's besides the point. What I feel like is the point that I'm trying to explain is that people really are putting themselves in a bad situation when they decide to use physical force against any type of defense force that is tied to your government, whether that be the state government, the federal government. And I know the whole point in, doing these types of protests and getting, kind of showing a show of force from the citizens is, well, they need to know that they can't just walk all over us. Like, we will not stand for tyranny. We will not stand for, the government having control over our lives. And so we're going to protest, which, again, good. That's good that there are people out there. I probably will never be that person. And I'm sure a lot of people that watch this video are also never going to be one of those people. I think it takes a certain kind of person to feel like it's necessary to get out there and speak out against whatever's going on. But I'm not one of those people for a few reasons. One of the reasons being I have a family, and I don't want my last moments on this earth. Mind you, I know the causes are important sometimes. I know that you should be willing to die for what you believe in a lot of times, but for the last moment of my life being, oh, I caught a stray bullet because I was at a picket fence or a picketing, protest regarding Israel and Gaza, or regarding, Russia and Ukraine, or regarding, more specifically at this moment in time, ICE in, the U.S. and furthermore, the deployment of troops perhaps in Minnesota and things like that. It'd be really dumb if I was lying there. This is what I would think. It'd be really dumb to die this way. Bleeding out from a bullet because somebody decided to get rowdy against the other side, and then bullets started flying. And then you're there like a jackass. I shouldn't make light of it, but, you get shot there, and then it's over for you. And sure, you could say, let's think most positively here. You could say, well, maybe I'll be a martyr for the cause. Maybe my death will inspire millions to stand up. Green's off. He's off from work. Or no, he's work from home today. Another snowstorm. Stay safe out there, man. Hey, we got a couple flakes of snow too, so we're in the same boat. I want to stay on this, okay? Feel free to chat, but I shouldn't get distracted on this. What I'm saying regarding this issue is I think people sometimes underestimate the power that our military, our defense forces actually has. And if forces are getting deployed to your area, then I would strongly advise, like, you should stay inside. You really should stay inside. And I would even say that when there are things like ICE roaming about, which people might say is the Gestapo of Trump's forces, if they're out and about, I would again advise that you do not engage with them in any show of force, whether that be a bunch of you guys tag up to peacefully protest and yell at these ICE agents who are not well trained and have guns, and not only have guns, but they have legal authority a lot of times to feel justified in their acts. If you guys get a little rowdy and you end up dead, a lot of times the government's probably going to take their back on it because it's less of a headache to just say he was in the line of duty. If there's National Guard mobilizing in your area, maybe stay inside. And I say all this to say that overall, I think it's evident that for the past ever, at least as long as I've been alive, there has been corruption in our local, state, and federal governments. And there's not just corruption in the U.S. There's corruption all over this world, right? Some of it's more blatant than others. A lot of it's hidden. A lot of it's hush-hush. A lot of it's behind closed doors. A lot of it's in files that get redacted. But we know enough as people, or we should know enough to know that corruption runs pretty wild in our governments. And if we, the people of the United States, were to ever change the corruption and get rid of corruption completely, and to eliminate the current structure that is our government, it would take damn near everybody. And everybody would have to be armed, and everybody would have to storm, and everybody would have to be willing to do whatever it took to see it through to the end to completely change your government and perhaps start one that's not corrupt. But hey, I just want to give you a little spoiler. Even if we were to accomplish that, the next people that take rule are probably going to be corrupt. And if not, then maybe their kids. And if not their kids, maybe the next, right? So we're really just buying our, even if we completely overrun the government, which would take all of us, uh, we might have a chance at like getting 1 or 2 generations without corruption in our government before it falls back into place. And now, if you think about that and think about how many ties America has to the rest of the world and how many people like want a piece of the control that's in this earth and how many people are our allies because they know that we are the ones that are truly in control. Think of our enemies, that if we toppled our government, how easy it would be for them to just come in here and, get their place in the seat. So really, you're screwed. We're at 18 minutes in. Really, you're fucked, okay? Just need to make sure that our, if one day this video pops off, I want to make sure that it doesn't get demonetized. Because this is good stuff. I'm the only one saying this. Even if you succeeded in toppling the government, you'd have a whole other can of worms to deal with that you open by performing a violent insurrection. Okay? And there are countries all the time, there are countries that try to stage, internal coups or civil wars. And most of the time, they get their ass kicked, or it's a struggle, or it takes, decades long, and then the government clamps down even harder on their dictatorial or totalitarian ways, and generations are wiped out as they try to fight for this cause, yada, yada, yada. That's how hard it is for other countries, and those governments barely have a defense budget. If you guys, and by you I mean if we all wanted to do it right and we all went against the government armed to stage some kind of, insurrection, the government has so much more. I mean, the government and defense and their budgets and how big of a machine that they've created is so massive and so unbelievably threatening to all ways of life that if they pointed it at you, you would not survive. And that's where I say it would take everyone, because they really do have what it takes to take most people out. Most people that are not them out, right? I've worked in multiple jobs, but I've also played Call of Duty. I know a lot of the capabilities that, the United States has. And as somebody, like I said before, who's worked in, full motion video programs, just the idea alone that there can be an eye in the sky on you and you might not ever know it, because that's how those things work, right? Like when Obama was in office and he had that drone program, and that everybody still talks about in some form or fashion today, of whether it exists, whether there is something like that. If we had it once, I don't understand why we wouldn't have, we wouldn't keep those pieces of technology, right? So let's just use common sense on that to say, okay, maybe the US still has that capability. If they turn that stuff on their own people, you've just never seen it before. A lot of these people that are out here protesting and saying like down with the government and stuff and are getting violent, they've never lived in a world like some of the other unfortunate souls, usually in the East, right, have had to experience with living in a world where in your airspace, in the airspace that you call, the sky to your home, people don't have to deal with being watched, being surveilled, and being eliminated due to more incredible surveillance than you can ever imagine in your entire life. Like, you seem to, I'll say this, you seem to underestimate the opponent that you're going against in a real sense. And I think it's funny how people are willing to call this government, and once again, I'm not trying to get on one political side or the other, but I think it's funny how people call this government fascist, how people are like, yes, they're, Nazis are running this government. Nazis are in the White House. There's a Nazi president. People are perfectly willing to say that, but then they're also willing to go out there and film themselves saying the most vitriolic statements towards people that sit in office. There's people that film themselves and their friends or their compatriots straight up assaulting ICE officers or straight up assaulting police officers, straight up assaulting whatever, insert whatever, local, state, or federal defense force that you can think of. If you really thought that the government was as bad as you thought they were, then you should know that everything that you're doing, could, I'm not saying is, right? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Everything that you're doing could be used against you in a trial if they wanted, and it could be a trial behind closed doors. It doesn't even, if they really wanted to fight back and they really wanted to use, or extort Americans with the power that they had, they would be judge, jury, and executioner, but you still somehow exist in a world where, we have our freedom of speech, we have our our right to bear arms. All right, this is topic 1 still, but let's do 1.5. So I was originally talking about how the guy got shot with a non-lethal round and is blinded, but then you go and I see this morning and there's a guy that's like, I don't know, he looks like me. He's a bearded white dude that is, I guess, standing at the front of his cul-de-sac holding an AR-15 that's like souped up. It's got attachments and fucking a grip and whatever. He's got it shoulder strapped, hanging at the low ready. And it says that this guy is doing this and like he's getting internet good boy points. He's probably getting internet bad boy points too, right, from the other side or whatever. But the whole idea of it is like, this guy is out here making sure that ICE doesn't come into people's private homes and steal them in the middle of the night. So I guess what he's saying is, I am going to shoot you if you are part of ICE and you come to this neighborhood and start knocking on doors. That's what I would get out of that message. Now, maybe you could say, no, it's still a peaceful protest. He's exhibiting his right to bear arms. It's an open carry. It's fine that it is. And, if his neighbors don't have a problem with it, which I would have a problem with it, to be honest with you. I would have a problem with it as a neighbor. I gotta be 100% straight up with you. But I've got kids, and when I'm out with my kids walking my dogs, and at the front of my cul-de-sac, there's a guy holding a fucking AR-15 at the Loretti, and my son asks him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm defending this place." Then my kid's whole idea of reality will break him in 2 seconds. He'll be like, "Well, aren't cops supposed to be that?" And then the guy would, turn around and he'd be like, "Oh, kid, you have so much to learn." That guy, I mean, good on him. Again, but now that picture is going to be saved. And if the government ever wants to start like, let's compile a list of people that were either violent or they showed violent tendencies to an organization created by the government in order to make America better, we'll just call these guys terrorists. We'll just mark them all as terrorists because, this is essentially people threatening to shoot law enforcement if law enforcement crosses a certain boundary, a physical, geographical boundary. I'm going to shoot them. Again, if you go out and do that, you need to understand that, there's not enough of you. There's not enough of you to accomplish what you think you're going to accomplish. It's a numbers game. And there is not enough people. And once again, I am not advocating for there to be more. If anything, I'm advocating, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is what I'm advocating for, okay? And it's very simple. I'm advocating that we're cooked. Okay, it's already the idea that we're gonna win some ground back from the government. We're going to win some ground back from the deep state. We're going to win some ground back from the Illuminati. Whatever side of the, pie that you fall on for mentally unwell, they already have enough. They have more than they ever have before. They have not been fighting a losing battle for the past 50 years or so. I think if anything, if you were one of those people that believed any of those things actually exist, they're more powerful now than they ever have been. They have more resources than they ever have. Let's say you're somebody that believes that it's a Nazi fascist government. Again, they have more than they could ever even have dreamed of having. So the ship has sailed in your ideas of we could fight this. We could be the change. I think it's over, man. I think it's over. I think that the ship isn't already sailing. The ship is already sinking, and we are on the ship. And there are no lifeboats left. There is no saving, being the big heroes, changing the world as we know it by protesting. It's just not going to happen. Maybe we could find a new place. All of the people in America, and I'll throw myself into that hat. Maybe we can find a new place one day that we wouldn't have to kill any indigenous people that live there. It's just a great swath of land that appears out of nowhere. Maybe we can all go there and all be virtuous and all be full of morals and all do the right thing on that place. And if something happens where we start to lose, control in that place to people that are evil, they haven't been evil there for that long. There hasn't been enough of an establishment to be evil in that place. Maybe we could fight them and maybe we could overcome tyranny in our new little country, our new little peaceful place, that we all had the same ideas going in. But unfortunately, that's unrealistic in this place that we live. First of all, for you guys that are still gung-ho about having a bipartisan system, it's rigged against you because now already half of the country thinks you're an asshole. Like, it's already pinned against people to even form some kind of force good enough. I don't even know what I'm saying in that, because that wouldn't be good, right? You overthrowing your government wouldn't be good. It would be stupid. You guys are already fighting against each other. F the states, go Canada and Greenland. There's Green's opinion, and I don't blame him for having it. There's just a lot of problems in this country, and I think, and I know how annoying it is to hear something like this. And I don't use this sparingly, but I think there is something to the whole, like, if you don't like it, you can leave. I know that there's problems. Believe me, I know that there's problems. And I know that generally speaking, we're cooked. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I'm trying to enjoy the last few years that I have. I'm trying to enjoy raising my kids before my kids become adults, and it's even more impossible to ever own a home or go to school without having crippling debt the rest of your life, or whatever you want to say. If we focused more on just making it a better ride, then in many ways I think there could be a situation in which maybe the deep state doesn't run the country. Maybe the fascists aren't the leaders of the country, and maybe we still do have democracy. Let's say that, let's say we have something like that. Imagine if we, did have less guns around the country, just like Green said, right? Get rid of the guns. Listen, I own a gun, and I own a gun because I want to pretend like if a violent person were to break into my home, I'm going to have the testosterone levels, the appropriate level of fear for my family and fear for myself, to arm myself and defend my home. In reality, I think if a robber broke in, I would do what they always tell you to do and tell them, yes, you can take what you want, sir. Please leave. My kids are sleeping, right? But I don't arm myself so that I can, bear arms against my government should they overstep their bounds on me, because I think that's a little pointless. And to you out there that have armories in your home, again, I go back to section D of my point back there, where let's say it was game over and the government came after you and you wanted to use your armory. If the government's coming after you, they don't even have to send a person after you, man. They can kill you from a long way away, and not have to worry about it. So um, I think the idea that we have as many guns in this country as we do doesn't really help us as much as it is just another waste of a business purchase. What am I trying to say here? It's kind of just it's working off of consumerism. Um, it doesn't harm a gun company to make more guns than what are necessary, because people can claim that they're collectors, or everybody can sleep well, the gun owners and the gun makers, thinking that they do nothing wrong, when in reality we obviously know that they're very dangerous, and people keep dying because of them inside of our own country. Wow, what a good segue. Inside of our own country. Okay. So let's stick a pin in topic number one, which is stay inside, please. Please stay inside. I don't want you to die. I guarantee that your mother, your father, your friends, your sister, your brother, your cousin, somebody out there, the guy that you play Arc Raiders with sometimes that hops on, whatever it might be, that person does not want you to die. Um, and if you die in an ice raid, that person isn't going to remember you for standing up in the ice raid. They're going to remember you for being the person that they didn't want dying in the first place. Nobody cares about shit anymore. It's just like the few that do and the few that are out there fighting the good fight. Like, it's great that you're doing that, but you're playing to an audience of so little these days. You're playing to an audience of people that are also going to get themselves killed for almost no reason, because the majority of people will look at your death and maybe care about it for a second or two, but then next week they're on to something else. And maybe you get lucky and you live in some kind of um, well liked fame that did good for the world around them. But the unfortunate truth of the matter is there's not going to be a lot of people talking about the guy that got shot in the eye from an ICE agent who was protesting a woman getting shot in the face and killed by an ICE agent, right? That guy that is blind in one eye, nobody is going to give a shit. And they probably won't even know your name because Renee Good died, a week before, and you were out there protesting, got violent, and got shot in the eye with a non-lethal round. Like, I'm not saying that you're an asshole who deserves it. I'm saying that, you did that. You were in a situation. You woke up that morning and said that you were going to do this specific thing, go to this specific place, protest this specific thing, got violent, and then got shot over it. I think that's, it's a bad take, man, is what I'm trying to say. Like, stay inside, play video games, maybe watch some movie, get educated in reading more. And I don't just mean get educated by reading. I mean, like, read some good fiction books, enjoy the leisurely things that you can afford to do in life before nothing is affordable anymore. That's topic number one. Topic number two is there is a lot of news circulating the idea that the U.S. is going to somehow invade Iran, strike Iran, attack Iran. Regarding, at least this is what the U.S., the executive branch is pushing out. We would do that because these protesters are getting murdered in Iran. So many protesters are dying in Iran. It's our job to make sure that this evil leadership that's in charge of this country pays for their crimes. Okay. It's kind of interesting, though, that it sounds more like, regarding Iran, it would be a full-on invasion. Very similar to what we've done to, Iran's neighbors. over the years. So, um, here's something funny. When I was in the military, I did human intelligence, and human intelligence in the army, at least when I was in, required you knew a foreign language. I only knew English, and I tested well on their language aptitude test when I was signing up for the army. That I was lucky enough to pick between two languages. I could have learned Spanish, or I could have learned Persian Farsi. Persian being, the language of Iran. I grew up in Florida, and I told myself, Spanish. I'm gonna learn it one day. I know I am. It's one of the easier languages to learn if you're into foreign languages. I think I can do that by like going on Duolingo, and like there's enough stuff out there that's Spanish content that I can kind of pick it up. I grew up in Florida. I got some Spanish down. Um, Persian Farsi. Let's do the Persian Farsi. Plus, the school was longer. I think Spanish was like 36 weeks at the language school. Mine was at least 48 weeks if I did Persian Farsi, the one that I chose. And I ended up being there for over a year in Monterey, California. My God, what a beautiful place. But something that's really cool about the language school there is usually the languages that they're teaching are taught by native speakers of that language. So in some cases, we got teachers that were from Iran. And these teachers, being from Iran, better than anybody else. I got to be honest, better than almost anybody else that you're listening to these days about what's going on in Iran. Whether you're watching, CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, whatever you're watching, these people that were my teachers for over a year and got really close to us students and would share personal anecdotes and stories from what it was like to be in Iran. They would have told you back when I was in, which is, I guess, further back than what's going on right now. They would have told you how fucked up it is in their country. They would have told you how crazy it is to have police breaking into your house because somebody told them that you had, cable TV that wasn't being censored. They would have told you how much people in Iran really just want to be like Americans, like how they're into the idea of the West, how these Marg Bar Amrika, right, the Death to America chants that are usually televised, in a lot of ways aren't even, that's not what's actually going on in the country. Maybe the news streams that are coming out of Iran will take a very small select group of people and make it look like half of the country is out there saying death to America. No, they would have told you back then that most Iranians are really upset with their current leadership and they're scared because this dictator completely rules over your life. And a lot of people aren't as, the people that live in Iran and are Shia Muslims are much like the people that live in the US and are Shia Muslims and the people that live in Europe and are Shia Muslims. These people are a lot like how I like to consider, what the portrayed, like Jewish protagonist is in films and TVs in, over the past 50 years of film and TV. It's somebody that's like, that's their heritage and it's what they stand for and that's their history. But as far as like, I gotta stick to this line by letter. I gotta follow all of the commandments. They're a little bit more. I'm not gonna say on the sacrilegious side, but I will say they're more, secular in their lifestyle. Their entire life doesn't have to be their religion, but it is their heritage. So maybe they are a lot more prideful about that than others. I think about that with like Roman Catholics too, and a lot of the way that they're portrayed. They're people that have their faith and they have, what they were raised in. They have their tradition, their culture, their values, but they're people at the end of the day. They go through the same exact things. They have the same exact thoughts. They wanted to, um, grow up and, drive a cool car and have a family and get, a house with a yard in it. Like everybody feels that way that grows up in a semi-civilized society. That's just the way that it is, and especially when you have access to like TV. Like if you're living in Iran and you hear the rest of the world and what they're up to, you want to be part of that because they were being accepted into the fold. When was that? When was that? Was that back in the '60s, the '70s, right? If you guys remember, if you were around in that time or you know your history, you know about the Iranian Revolution that happened. And the Iranian Revolution occurred after a coup was enacted on the leader of Iran, right? Shah Pahlavi. He was a really cool dude. He was very like a Western man. I mean, this was the Iran when they were looking exactly like you could have put a picture of Tehran next to a picture of like Beverly Hills, California, and you probably couldn't tell the difference, right? Um, this was the Iran of like Hollywood, essentially. They looked awesome. Everybody had fancy hair. The guys were all rocking, the gel in their hair, wearing their nice suits, driving their sweet cars. I mean, it was Americana back then. And I say Americana, that was kick ass no matter what you think. Like that style, that vibe of America, that I wish that's what America could have stayed at least in the vibe, right? For forever because it felt like there was something. It felt like there was promise and hope, and that life could be like a movie instead of what it is now, and everybody is just mentally deranged. Okay, but around that time, Shah Pahlavi got removed in a coup. That newsflash, that was us. Helped support, helped carry out. So a coup led by the U.S. And you know what's really funny? You know what's really funny, especially after this whole Venezuela uh, issue that we have going on? The really funny thing is that it could be attributed a lot to the Shah's refusal to just give up oil to the U.S. For basically a shakedown. And that's amongst other things too, right? He just wasn't willing to bend the knee as much as we wanted him to at that time. And you could say what you want about the whole situation that did happen. You could say that there's way more to the story, and America acted out of the interest not just for themselves, but the civilized Western world at the time. Um, and who knows? Maybe you're right. But what I do think is interesting is that you can't deny that there was um, there was oil involved, as there usually has been for us in these types of areas, or at least that's how it's been for the past 50 years. And you know, I don't know whether to say that time heals all wounds, or maybe we might have forgotten America. There's so many things going on. It's hard to pay attention all the time to the fact that we totally caused Iran to fall apart, much like how Europe and the Western world is why the Ottoman Empire fell and devolved into what it was, and how many of the extremists in those types of areas after the Ottoman Empire broke up still reference that as like the reason why they started hating the West as much as they did, right? We continued to play our conquesting, you know, uh, cowboy games in these countries in that time, and us removing the Shah lined up pretty well with an impending Iranian revolution. And trust me, boys and girls, it's not like we didn't know what was happening in the country, right? We're pretty smart when it comes to global affairs. So this idea that like it was unforeseen that all of a sudden now you have Ayatollah Khamenei in charge of a country, and they used to have like a Shah, basically a king, but a dude that was like totally open to being essentially like part of Europe. Um, they devolved into absolute religious theocracy chaos, all of a sudden, the ladies that were dressed like the Hollywood girls in America were told you need to put, a covering over your hair or your hair, excuse me, um, or else you're going to get beaten in the streets by police. That's our fault. That's our fault. No matter how you slice it, that's our bad. Okay, and you know what we did? You know what we did to make up for it over the past 50 years? Well, let's see. We always are telling them and the rest of the world that they have nuclear power and nuclear weapons that are forming. Whether or not there was any evidence of that, or whether we could ever show you, that might be a different story. But we're always accusing them of something. We're always accusing them of their ties with Hezbollah. So we're constantly attributing that country to working with terrorists. And I'm not saying that Iran doesn't or didn't at the time, because I'm sure they probably did, but it's kind of fucked that you are partially, if not fully, to blame for why they're working with Hezbollah, and you like to come out here and be like, Iran's a bad country. We've been doing it for forever. And I think that in many ways, with the Iraqi war and the Iranian or the Iran-Iraq war, where we basically just fucked over both countries, really, but we turned our backs on Iran, um, and that could be seen as quite the shitty thing to do, because they got really fucked. The both sides got fucked, and then what did we do? We invaded Iraq, and we did so on account of them having weapons of mass destruction, despite us not being able to prove it. And then we killed their leader. it's it's a lot of issues that we seem to have been involved um, in those countries, and now all of a sudden, when they've been killing protesters for a long time and imprisoning protesters for a long time, Iranian leadership for a long time has been maniacal, actual fascism, actual dictatorship going on, a theocracy, a supreme leader, right? Where do you know that one from if you're not familiar with Iran? That's a total like Kim Jong Un kind of deal they've got going on there, except instead of being God like Kim Jong Un claims, this guy is the one link between them as a country and Allah, right? So uh, again, it's not like Iran doesn't need a regime change. If you are living in the Western world, I think you should agree with that. But I just think it's odd that the regime needs to be changed, much like you can make the argument that Maduro needed to be removed from office in Venezuela, but we didn't want or we didn't have to kill, endanger the lives, whatever we're looking like we could be doing to citizens that live in Iran in order to accomplish this regime change, because we already accomplished a regime change once in that country, and I think we owe them a solid to like make up for it by doing a regime change in a similar way. Um, if you are somebody that knows little about what's going on in Iran, and you are against any kind of intervention in Iran by America, even one of those cool raids like they did to Maduro, um, then I would say maybe you should learn more about Iran and how their government's structured and how they are committing crimes against humanity every day as a governing body. I would say look into that, um, and tell me if that changes your opinion about how you feel about the idea of having some kind of regime change there. But if you're somebody that is totally for America going in and starting a war in Iran, sending troops on the ground there, not just going for a regime change, but a total, takeover, a total restructuring of the government, um, I would say that I would say that we have done enough. We've done enough in that region, and I think that Iranians, along with people that have common sense, would all say that they would prefer we not intervene at all, uh, rather than having a full scale war that would, just result in more bloodshed overall. Because you might not know it, but most Muslims are peaceful people. So most people are peaceful people too. I don't know if people understand that, but we all crave peace, and there are many instigators amongst us. But I would say for the most part, most people are peaceful. So let's try not having more war in 2026, shall we? Wow, that was what, 53 minutes of crying? I just, my heart breaks for people, man. My heart breaks for the idea that people can't simply have peace in life, that things eat away at them constantly, that they feel like they are in somehow responsible to save the entire world. I just, let's say this as well. Um, as much as I am sympathetic with the plight of what it feels like for men and women living in Iran as citizens under a tyrannical government, an actual tyrannical government. I'm not saying our government isn't tyrannical, but I think there's some hyperbole there on both sides. Um, it could get a lot worse. Believe me, we don't have it too bad yet. We will probably eventually, maybe in our lifetimes. But we can't stop that either. So enjoy the ride. I'm just trying to say, I get it's hard for them, and I wish there was a way that the government here would have a more peaceful, or a less casualty causing way of dealing with the Iran issue. But I do think that um, there's a lot of problems at home too, and I feel as though a lot of people, including myself, probably would say that we would rather the government focus a little bit more on what's going on inside of our borders. Um, and I don't just mean because this conversation started talking about ICE. I'm talking about kids that are forever in debt because they took out student loans, and people not being able to afford education or healthcare or any of those kind of things in these countries or in this country. Like, I think a lot of people would say, like, let's not invade Iran or get involved in any more stuff with Venezuela, and let's not take military action against NATO and go into Greenland, and let's not start World War III. Um, we would much rather you focus on any of the social issues that are currently impacting our country that are resulting in the deaths of our own people, young and old. Um, I think we should start there. So, yes, I think that was the entirety of. Wow. Green. Green, you don't even live here, bro. What do you know? Green, you can't talk about my man Trump like that. Um, Green says, I got issues, but you got them too. I got ice in my veins. I'll kill ya. Any mean cop. I was with you at the beginning. Ice in my veins, blood in my eyes. Lil Wayne, right? I'll kill any mean cop. That's crazy. Trump needs to choke and die, particularly on a. And then you said a word that I'm so surprised they didn't mute. But I will not repeat that on stream after everything that I've said because that is not what I would say. I wouldn't say that um, about Trump. I would say that Trump, like many people in this country, needs a friend that's honest with him. He needs a he needs um, he needs somebody to show him that you don't have to manipulate in order to be loved. Maybe he needs a therapist. Those are the things that I think that he needs, and a good therapist too. Maybe he could use some, some dosing of THC. He needs to be in prison. He is a felon. He is a felon. So maybe he needs to do time, time for his crimes, and while doing time for his crimes, on a dimes. It just felt like it needed to be rhymed with something. Maybe while he is in prison, he can be getting all of the things that I said that I think that he needs. I I don't want to think about that right now, Green. That wasn't on my radar for something that I wanted to actually imagine at, at this particular time. You're allowed to have strong feelings. That's the great thing about America. And I think that's why this country is still pretty great. All things considered, and it might just be a for now thing, but I do think it's pretty cool that we are able to say those things and not be killed secretly. But can you have feelings? You can if you're white. I think now's a perfect time. Now's a perfect time to start playing Danganronpa. Listen, lots of feelings shared this morning. Lots of feelings. Lots of from the heart stuff. I just felt like it was a good conversation to have on MLK Jr. Day. At the very least, I hope everyone knows that everyone deserves love and everyone was once a child. Everyone was once a child who didn't know anything, and somewhere along the line, their mind got poisoned. Maybe it was poisoned before they could even do anything about it, and they became the people that they are. And yes, sometimes it's very hard to deal with people that you despise. But when you look inside yourself and you say, what if I don't hate the person? What if I hate, you know, their sin from a Christian perspective? What if I don't hate the person? I hate their trauma that was, enacted upon them for them to be this way. It's hard to deal with you sometimes. I'm serious, man. I know we can, be in the moment. I can be playing in a CS lobby with somebody and be like, I fucking hate this guy so much. But I think when we... I am too, that wasn't joking. I know. Stop it. Stop it. I'm just trying to say that if we think about it, maybe after the match, we think about the fact that that guy with a hentai animation profile picture with AK-47 skin in the game that has the N-word built with stickers on the gun, we can look at a guy like that and we can say, hopefully, that guy or gal was once a child. They were once innocent. Green's just mad about Counter-Strike still. Lay off, Green. Alright, sometimes you pop off. That's actually what my screen's on right now. Sometimes you pop off, okay? That's cool, right? I'll show the stats for everybody at home. Here's Green with 43 and 15 as his KD. We've got a teammate of his that went 7 and 22. We did not have an enemy team member go 7 and 22, so that's not great. Going 12 and 20 is almost as bad as going 12 and 19. So the top fragger on the enemy team looks like they had a 20 and 18 KD, and the second top fragger had a 24 and 18. So maybe more damage done by the top guy than the second guy down, but both pretty considerably good. And then you had Green with 43 and 15, and then the next guy down going 13 and 17. So big surprise here. We had 11 on Green's team and 13 as the final score on enemy team, which ended up winning. It must have been a long game that felt like it was gonna. It was owed. I think Green feels like the victory was owed to him with the work that he was putting in. But the unfortunate side of life is in a team sport. If you're doing that well, there's a good chance the rest of your team is not. And in a team game, unfortunately, if you get a 25k kill streak in Counter-Strike, you can't automatically end the game like you could in Call of Duty. So this, very sad, but a very good dose of reality. And then I said to him, maybe try playing the objective next time. Duh. He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything in response to that. It's kind of rude. All right.